Good now. Microphone's live. Oh, refill? Yes, please.
Yeah.
Sorry, Zoe, I'm gonna check a few things real quick. All right, hello, Zoom, you can hear me here, right? Yeah. Thanks, Clemens.
I'm gonna move it this way so that we have more space.
Okay.
And also so that we can move the room a little bit.
Okay. Oh, that is sick. Okay. Yeah,
Let me just
we're
be the
good.
operator.
Sure. Sure. All right. All right. So we're gonna get started in a little bit, everyone. It's been kind of chaotic the past few days. So pods are still in progress. So hopefully later in the workshop we can get you to actually perform some of the stuff that I'll be showing. But for now, it's going to only have to be demonstration only. So sorry for any conveniences. Been rough couple of days, but hopefully we can get these for access to you all. But the sign-in link and actually, let me put this down. Sign-in link and study guides are on the link tree. And by the way, this workshop is going to be talking about Active Directory attacks and going in more depth on some of the super cool attacks that you can do. But few announcements real quick. Become a paid member. It's really cool. Mentorship program is pretty awesome and all the other cool stuff you get. Links in the link tree or above. $20 a semester or $35 a year. Fall RVB. Comments, you want to talk about that? Oh. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, it's me once again. I'm here to tell you guys about RVB. I was about to say Power RVB. And so basically, for those of you who haven't heard, I keep saying Power RVB. RVB is a competition that we hold where you can learn a lot of skills, including business administration skills, IT skills, and system administration skills. It's going to be on Saturday, November 12th, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. We welcome all skill levels, and it doesn't matter if you have yourself or a team of 2, a team of 3, a team of 4, you can still sign up and have fun. So yeah, I encourage you all to sign up. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Clements. Another thing that we have is a Swift one-on-one mentorship program where you get paired with an industry professional who's working and has that like work experience, the real work experience. So you get to learn more about how it's in the industry for fields like security engineering, red teaming, IR, and more. I heard there's a lot of red teamers out there that are willing to be mentors. So that's really cool. You get to, get that industry insight, but also personal guidance towards career goals. I'm sure that many of these mentors have experiences and have things that like they wish they've done when they were still in school. So you get to learn about those. and a lot more. And the application is on Linktree. I think you need to be a paid member for this, so be sure to be a paid member before you, or not before, but like if you consider doing the mentorship program. For the schedule of events, this is the AD pen testing workshop. Next week's going to be our capstone event, where we're going to take a little bit of everything we've done in the past month and put it into one culminary event where you get to try out all these hacks, but also be able to figure out like what the recommendations are and what like steps to remediate are, just like what you would do in a real pen test. And then November is going to be our RVB themed month, where a lot of our workshops and meetings are going to be geared towards red versus blue stuff. So how to prepare for red versus blue, no Clem's celebrating over there, how to build your own environment so you can practice, as well as some other strategies that you can do. And then once again, November 12th is fall RVB from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., I think. Right.
11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Yeah. And that's on the Saturday. All right, so let's go quick table of contents. First, I'm going to talk about local privilege escalation. So once you're on like a Windows machine, what do you do to get administrator? Then we'll talk about Active Directory related attacks, kind of a little subsection of what we talked on Tuesday. Then we'll go over a tool called Bloodhound, where you can map out an Active Directory environment and be able to figure out attack paths from there. And then hopefully at the end, we can get you all to get hands-on with our lab, where you'll be able to try out all of these attacks that we'll be discussing, or at least most of them. So first of all, local privilege escalation. So there are a lot of ways, and this is going to be towards Windows machines. Linux probably has a different listing of different ways that you can priv-esc, but for Windows, these are 4 ways. There are probably tons more out there, but we'll just talk about these 4 ways. Always install elevated, unattended files, modifiable services, and something called unquoted service path. So what is always install elevated? It's actually like 2 registry keys that are set in these locations. I'm not going to read them out loud, but you can see them. And the screenshot below shows what it looks like when it's set. So once again, these are registry settings that are set to 1 and these 2 locations. And this would make it so that all MSI files are run as local administrator. So this is used when like system administrators get kind of lazy, when people are trying to like run things and they need to have admin privileges. This is something that lazy system administration people would set so that they don't have to deal with people, bothering them. But as an attacker, this is pretty insane to see, because this is like a really easy way to get like local administrator. But when you think about MSI files being executed as local administrator, I want to ask you what ways we can use this to leverage this as an attacker. So if we had the ability to run any MSI file with admin privileges, then what can we do to get local administrator? Anyone want to take a crack at this?
Install a backdoor.
Install a backdoor. Do you want to explain a little bit more? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So basically, if we see this registry key enabled, then what we can do is upload a malicious.msi payload onto a victim machine, and then just run that MSI file. And like you all know, like MSI files, right? Like sometimes you want to install like Wireshark or something. It's like an installation file. So it's kind of like an exe when you think about it like that. So once again, what we can do when we see this setting is create a .msi payload, transfer it to the victim machine, and then just run that MSI payload. And then that's going to run as administrator access, which means that if we are able to do our attack correctly, then we should be able to elevate our privileges. So what exactly does this look like? So first of all, in this example, what I have done is created a payload using a tool called MSF Venom, which is a payload generation tool, which allows us to make like a multitude of payloads. So in here, we're specifying a payload of Windows, x64, shell, reverse TCP. There's like a bunch about there, but we won't really talk about that here. We also set our L host and L port, which basically means our machine. So this machine right here in the screenshot is or has an IP of 192.168.1.5. And we want to listen on port 4444. So that's what we're going to put as our listening port. We're using -F for file type, and we want our file type to be a .msi file. And then the output -O is going to be payload.msi. And we can name this whatever we want. But because it's an MSI file, we want to have this MSI extension. So here in this example, we're just creating our malicious.msi payload. Anyone have any questions here? Okay, cool. A next step for this would be to transfer our payload to a victim machine. So in this screenshot, I know it's a little bit hard to see in person, but where I'm using a tool called EvilWinRM, which basically is like PowerShell's version of SSH. So it allows you to remotely log on to a Windows machine and then interact with it using PowerShell. And EvilWinRM has built-in tools to do just like a little bit more than what you would usually expect for PowerShell. So you can upload files with just this upload command. And what we're doing here is uploading our payload.msi into our victim machine. And this screenshot is what like we are connected. It shows me connected to a victim machine. So we upload our payload.msi to the victim machine, and then I ran an ls command to confirm that that payload.msi file is there. Any questions here? All right, cool. So, once again, recap, we created the payload, then we transferred it from our machine to the victim machine. And then next thing that we're going to do is run a netcat listener to catch our reverse shell. So how a lot of these attacks work is that we have like two computers, our victim and then our Kali box. What we want to do is have some way for our victim machine to connect back to our Kali box. And that is through reverse shells in this MSI Venom payload with our MSI Venom payload with our MSI file type is going to be the one that's going to connect back to our Kali machine. So we're going to the victim machine, we're connecting back to us. So that is why it's called a reverse shell. So what we're going to do is run netcat. I'm going to use this RL wrap command as well. That just makes it easier to go up and down different commands in case like more flexibility with our shell. But I'm going to run this to listen on port 4444. And then back on the victim machine, I'm going to run this MSI file through command prompt. And the specific syntax for executing this MSI file is down here, MSI exec /quiet/qn/i payload.msi. I'm not exactly too sure what most of those does. I know quiet probably just doesn't show a window when you execute this. But if you go online and find out guides on like always install elevated pen testing, then they're going to use the same sequence of flags and commands. And once we execute this MSI file, we are able to get system privileges. So once again, in here, we ran this command, we execute our MSI file, and then while we execute it, if we look back at our machine, we're going to see something along the lines of like connect to some IP from unknown, blah, 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 blah. And then it's going to show our terminal. And I ran the who am I command to determine what user I'm on. And it says NT authority/system, which basically means you have the highest privileges on a Windows computer. On Linux, it's root, but on Windows, it's referred to as system. So any any questions with this always install elevated? We good? Okay. The next thing I want to talk about are unattended files, and these are basically just files that a Windows uses to configure and modify a Windows machine during installation. So like if has anyone like installed Windows with like a USB before? Right. So you would just like drop your unattend file in there, put in all your like configurations and stuff. And then once you install Windows, it's going to look at that unattend file and then configure the system based on that. So things that you can configure with unattend files include users, which means that there are going to be passwords on there. And if these files remain on the disk after installation, then once attackers get on your machine, they can view these unattended files and see if there are any credentials in there. And if those credentials, haven't been changed, then they may lead to another Prevesc method. So there's a tool called SharpUp, and there's many other tools like this that can audit and run scans on your machine to look for any potential privilege escalation paths. So one example is SharpUp, which does a bunch of checks to see what like priv-esc paths there are. And in this command down here, I'm running sharpup.exe audit unattended install files. So what this is going to do is just basically check if there are any unattend.xml files on the system. And once again, I am running this on the victim machine. Here I am evil winrm into the victim machine, and I'm running this executable, which is located on the victim machine. So if we find the unattend.xml file, we can look at them to see if they contain any credentials. I blurred it out here just in case, because this is the same environment as what should be on the lab, hopefully. But in here we have this is like in XML format, so it's kind of weird looking, but we can see there's a username associated with this local account called administrator. And then there's also some password value over here with a plain text is true flag or setting, which means whatever is in here is in plain text. And assuming that this plain text password still is connected to this administrator account, that basically just means we have the credentials for the admin account. And what we can do with this is we can, go back into evil winrm and log in and then see if those credentials work. And if they work, then they're most likely going to be administrative credentials. So once again, unattended files just contain credentials. They're used to modify Windows systems during installation, but if you forget to remove them, then they can pose as a priv-esc path. Any questions about unattended files? We good? Okay. Next thing are modifiable services. So this basically just means you get to modify a service on Windows. And if you have this permission to modify a service, then you could potentially escalate your privileges and get system. So just a quick TLDR about services. When services on Windows are started or restarted, they're usually just executing an exe file somewhere on the system. So when you go into your services, you right click and you hit start, it's going to run some exe somewhere. And that exe is associated with this bin path variable. So every service has a bin path, which is tied to some exe file. So if a service is modifiable, you could change the configuration of the service. That means you can change the bin path of that service that has the weak permissions. So what you want to do to locate these is to use a tool like SharpUp, which can also look for modifiable services. You would see what services are modifiable from your current user. Then what you can do is edit the bin path or binary path of that service to point to a malicious exe. So for example, this bin path on the bottom shows us changing our binary path of some random service we choose to see Windows temp evil.exe, assuming evil.exe is our malicious exe payload. And then after we change our bin path, then we can stop the service and then start it again to kind of simulate a restart. And once we restart our service, what Windows is going to do is execute our evil.exe payload, which should hopefully get us system level access if the service is running as system, which usually is by default. So this is another pretty easy way to get local administrative access. Any questions for modifiable services? We good? Okay. So next thing I want to mention is about uncoded service path. So if a service is binary, like this bin path over here, is not wrapped in quotes and contains spaces, then Windows would do something kind of strange. But to explain what I mean, let's go over with this example real quick, where we have a service with a bin path of this. See program files, vulnerable services, service1.exe. So this bin path does not contain any quotes or any spaces. So what Windows is going to do is look for specific executables in a specific pattern until a binary is found. So here, if we had a bin path of this, then Windows would first look for program.exe, and then program files vulnerable.exe. And then if there's no binary there, then it's going to search for program files vulnerable service.exe. And then if this is not found, then it's going to go into the last one, which is C program files vulnerable services, vulnerable service space 1.exe. So once again, if the bin path of a service does not contain any quotes, but also contains spaces, then Windows would go with this kind of strange search process in order to find a valid .exe file. So what this means is that if we create our malicious exe file and then write that exe file into this directory, C program files vulnerable services service.exe, then what is going to happen is that in the search order, the normal service would be on the bottom. So Windows would have to look for all these three, and if those three are not found, then it would run the legit one, which is the bottom one. But because we have a valid path over here, a valid exe file in the third option, then what Windows is going to do is going to check for program.exe, does not exist. Then it checks for program files, vulnerable.exe, does not exist. Then it searches for C program files, vulnerable service.exe, and because this is what we have uploaded our exe to, this is going to make a hit, which means the service is going to execute that exe, and then that's going to stop there. I think that is it for these four, but any questions on unquoted service path? Okay, we'll try to see if I can do a quick demo while we wait for the pods to be ready. So I'm gonna share my other screen real quick. So this is my machines, okay. So I'm gonna quickly log into my Kali machine. I'm actually gonna sit down for this because I don't want to hurt my back. Okay, I think I'm good. I just moved the mic down. Okay, so okay, thank you, Clemens. It is not. All right, so I've opened up my Kali machine over here. I'm gonna zoom in a lot because it's very, very, very dim under the light. But what I have here is my attacker Kali VM, and I'm also going to open this Windows machine as well. And I hope it can load. Yeah, so by the way, has anyone heard about an assumed breach scenario before in like pen testing? Bless you. Anyone heard about the term called assumed breach scenario? So basically in like pen tests and like for red teams, there are a variety of different tests that a company can request. There can be one where red teams like emulate like an adversary or something to pretend to be like completely from the outside and try to get in. But an assumed breach scenario, which means, it's like imagine a user had already clicked the fish and someone's already on the machine. That's like an assumed breach scenario where attackers or like the red team would like test the internal network for vulnerabilities. Doesn't like hack the box and all the other training stuff. There's like you have to get in the machine first, and then you have to privesk. For assumed breach scenarios, it's usually you already get access because the company provides you access to simulate someone clicking a fish or like an attacker already being in. And then the red team is going to test like the internal network and all the Active Directory stuff that is happening inside. So that's just a quick TLDR, and that is kind of what we are going with in this scenario. So let's say this company, redemption.nft, had provided us credentials, pen test, and we're able to log into this machine. So what I'm going to do is evil winrm my way into the machine. So I think the IP is .3, my user's pen test, my password is pen test. Oh, typo. And I hope this works. If not, I might have to change some IP stuff. Okay, I'm gonna just do some quick tests. I'm not sure if the network is just a little slow or something is going on. Is there any of the 4 attack paths? Let me go back to the attack paths. Actually, I'm just gonna share my entire screen. Any specific attack path that you guys want to look at? Out of these 4? Yeah, we can go with the modifiable service one because I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, we're not opening messages, please no. Okay. Give me one moment. Okay. All right, so shoot. Okay, something happened here. Try winrming again. If not, then we'll do something else. I'm gonna use another tool called X3RDP to see if I can remotely connect to my machine. So -u/u for user test. And then all right, I think my IP's worked. I'm gonna do something. Oh my gosh.
I didn't know like what this thing was. I just realized it was this shit. Oh, I was like, oh, this like week.
Wow. Okay, let's try this. All right, I have no idea what's going on. All right, doesn't really matter. We're gonna do something a little different. So we're gonna still work with the unquoted, no, not unquoted, the modifiable service vulnerability, which is on this machine. But I'm going to have to swap between these different VMs. But that is what we'll have to deal with. So first, I'm going to make my NS7 payload. So that's going to be Windows 64 shell reverse TCP host. I think I am still 192.168.1.5. And then fmsi o payload.msi. Wait, just kidding. I don't know what I'm doing. Should do it's not an MSI. It can be in the XC. Yeah, MS Venom can take a little while. Because it's kind of a big tool. But anyways, meanwhile, what I'm going to do is figure out a way to transfer a file from my Kali onto this Windows machine. There are multiple ways to do this. A popular one is using like a simple web server or something like that. But I'm going to use something called a SMB share. There's a tool called SMB server.py that emulates an SMB server, and you can kind of see how it works. But I'm gonna just run this thing real quick. SMB server.py -SMB2 support FYR, which is my username, and then dot to signify I want to host an SMB share that's called FYR in this directory. So hopefully this can run, but processing power can be a little slow sometimes. All right, so the SMB server seems to be on, but wait, what the heck? Oh, it should be regular exe, I think. Yeah, so basically, I think I got an error saying that I have an invalid format. So it just gave me suggestions. Oh, okay, there we go. So what my SMB share that I have configured over here, I could go into this machine over here. Sorry if it's really small, but I'm gonna go into my file browser, and this is what SMB allows me to do. I can put in 2 backslashes and then type in my Kali IP, which is 192.168.1.5, and then my share name, which is FYR. So it basically allows me to access like the file system from the Windows machine, which is like really, really convenient. So once again, I have an SMB server over here. And then I'm using a remote Windows machine, the victim machine, to remotely access that share. So I have this payload file over here, which I'm just going to drag into my desktop actually. So you might be thinking like I can just run this and get a reverse shell, but we want to get elevated access. So running this is just going to give me a reverse shell of my current user, which is our unprivileged pen test user, but we want to get something like system. So what I'm also going to put into the share is sharp up. Shoot. Which is a tool to check for local privilege escalation paths. And I think if I just click refresh over here, I can just browse to it and drag it. That's why I kind of like SMB shares. It's pretty nice. But let's run this sharp up tool. Actually, I'm gonna see if I can increase the font here. All right, so I'm gonna go to desktop. And then I'm going to run sharpup.exe and then audits. And I'm just gonna run sharp up audit. We're just gonna check for a lot of priv-esc paths. Yeah, all of these we don't really care about. We'll see if it spits out any other in our output. Okay, we're just gonna cancel this and just look for modifiable services. Modifiable services. Okay, yeah, so you can specify like a specific check you want to check. And then we want to check for modifiable services. We're gonna get a bunch of errors over here, but there is one service that gives us some different reading, service NFT service. This looks like it stopped. The start mode is auto. So this basically means that we can modify the service and see if there's a way to get system from that. So what I am going to do is I'm going to edit the config for this. So if we go back to this example, modifiable services, I'm going to change the bin path of my service. And just for quick refresher, the service, when it starts, it executes that file in the bin path. So if I change that file, then I can control what executable a service starts at. So what I'm going to do is type in sc config and then the service name, which is nft service, and then and modify the bin path to point to my payload, which is in my desktop. So one quick thing I can do, actually, no, that's not a good example. I can go into my users, where is it, pen test directory. I'm just going to copy the file path from here, and then I'm going to paste it in. I'm going to paste it in. And oh, shoot, forgot the actual payload. Oh, wait. PowerShell is kind of weird in command prompt. I think you can do just sc, but I think you have to specify sc.exe when you're on PowerShell. I wonder if sc query actually works. No, it's not going to give me anything, which is weird. But yeah, sc.exe does. So that's kind of weird. What I'm going to do on my machine real quick is start up my listener. It's rl wrap nc nvlp 4444. I'm gonna go back into my machine over here. I'm gonna do sc.exe start NFT service. And hopefully that gets me a reverse shell, but it looks like nothing is happening right now, which is kind of strange. Oh, just kidding. We got it working. One of the things that actually worked, this workshop. So anyways, if we do who am I, we can see that we are administrator, which is pretty nice. You can do who am I / all and see all the other stuff that we have. So that's just one quick example. That wasn't really quick, but that's just one example of a local privilege escalation. And in this section, the goal was to have you try it for yourself. There's like 3 intended paths for this, but it seems we're still having issues. So unfortunately, I don't think we can get you to try the local privilege S stuff.
Well,
Oh,
the work groups are made, half the pods are on.
oh, what?
I think that, we're just gonna, we might just give one user. Yeah, we have.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you guys want your real name docs or your Discord name docs?
So like,
There's no point
so I mean, we can use my user and password, but that's like really bad. So we're not gonna use that actually.
But you have.
Yeah, which is terribly bad.
So if you're making a user that everyone can see everyone on, but
Mhm.
I'm just gonna use the list and then give everyone a number.
Okay. Okay. Do you know when you can get that by? Is it like almost done or is it almost finished or what I have to do? Okay.
Well, I mean, I can give up the user right now. if you really want.
All right, doesn't matter. I can continue with the rest of this and then have some time if we have time to play around. All right, so next thing I'll talk about real quick are AV attacks. I know we talked about those last Tuesday or this past Tuesday. But we'll go over a little bit less of them, but a little bit more in depth. More on how to actually perform the commands and stuff rather than all the theory behind it, because we're in the business of seeing out how you would perform these attacks. So first thing is Kerberos, which basically means taking the password hashes of service accounts. You would need valid domain credentials to perform a Kerberos attack. And how would you perform it? You would use a tool called getuserspns.py, which is an impacket tool. This would be the format of this tool, getuserspns.py, then whatever domain that you're part of, then the username and the password. Sometimes you have to specify DCIP, which is the domain controller's IP address, and then /requests. And that's going to get you the hashes. And then you would use a tool like Hashcat or John the Ripper to crack those hashes. And this is what it looks like. I think this is the slide from previous Tuesday. But in here, we're using a tool impacket getuserspns, which is basically the same thing as getuserspns.py. Our domain. And then our username and password, DCIP request. It's going to give us a listing of service accounts and then the entire hash of that service account, which can be very long. And I know there's like a lot of things you can do with hashes like pass a hash and all of that, but this you cannot do it because it's in a format called NTLM v2. So the only thing you can do is crack this hash. But if you do get like a Kerberosable user with a weak password, then this can be another way to get a domain admin. So if we were to get this user's hash of Mandy, who is a domain admin, then we could get the password, we can remotely log in into the domain controller and get domain admin. Another tool or another attack is ASRep roasting, which is taking password hashes of user accounts that have the setting do not require Kerberos pre-authentication enabled. That is when you go into like users and groups and then you right click the user and then you scroll down with the settings and then you can just check this. If you check it, it makes it vulnerable to an ASRep roast. So it's kind of strange on like why you would do that. But sometimes there are like legacy servers and legacy services that require this. So that is just like an example of why someone would enable this. But once again, this is another way to obtain password hash of a user account. There are a different set of requirements for this actually, ASRep roasting doesn't really require valid domain credentials like Kerberos does, but you do need a username that you can test your attack on, or a listing of usernames that are specified in like a text file or any file. If you have a valid domain accounts or anonymous access to read LDAP, read the service LDAP service, then what you can do is get all ASRep roastable accounts. So once again, you can either just supply a username. If you don't have creds, you can specify just a username or listing of usernames. But if you do have creds, you can just put your username, password, and then you will be able to get all the ASRep roastable accounts. But if you use just a username without any creds, then you would only test to see if you can get creds for that specific username or listing of usernames. So yeah, once again, this is an example of a ASRep roast attack. And this blurred part at the users section of the syntax can either be a user we want to get the hash of or a user with valid domain creds. And if we authenticate with valid credentials, then we get the hashes of all the users that are ASRep roastable. But once again, if we do not have credentials, then we would need to know the username of a user in order to test this attack out. So any quick questions about ASRep roasting or curve roasting? There's a lot of like theory and mechanisms behind it, but like the simplest way I can describe it is curve roasting, you get password hashes of service accounts. ASRep roasting, you get password hashes of user accounts that have this setting enabled. But everyone good with those two? Oh, we're good. Okay, I'll just go on to the next one. So SMB shares are also like a pretty nice way to get more leverage into a machine. They're basically just folders that other computers can access. So just like what I have over here, this is an SMB share that this computer was able to access. I lost my slides. Wait, I actually lost my slides. Oh, no, there they are. So if you come across computers or servers that have SMB shares, then there are a few things that you would want to check. First thing is, what SMB shares are there? Are there any SMB shares that seem interesting that you want to get into? And those things like that. Other things that you want to check is, do you have valid credentials to view the SMB share? So are you able to access it without any authentication? That's also known as like null or anonymous SMB shares. Or do you need like a valid domain credential? Like as if our similar to how we were able to have our like pen test account. So once again, do you need valid credentials to view SMB shares? And another thing, if you do have ability to view SMB shares, can you write into them? Can you modify files? Can you upload stuff or download stuff? And that can get you even more leverage into an SMB share. And there's a tool called SMB client that you can use to interact with shares. So here are just a few examples. Some of them require authentication. Some of them you can try null authentication. If you want to connect to a specific share, then you would specify a share name. But once again, you can use SMB clients to interact with shares. SMB shares are not direct paths. What's up?
SMB client tell you the privileges.
Maybe, I'm not too sure. You just have to test it. I'll just test it myself. There might be other tools that can get you.
SMB have to do it, but
All right, that's something that you can try out. Okay, yeah, once again, SMB shares are not like really direct paths to get like domain administrator, but there are ways that you can get closer and get more leverage to getting domain administrator. So this example over here, I'm using SMB client to list out all the shares. I'm specifying username and password, pen test, we're good. Okay, I'm gonna go this real quick and then we can just give them out. Okay, so yeah, once again, we're listing shares with a -L option. And then if you want to connect to a specific share, then we can specify web share, which is this specific web share over here. and then supply credentials again, and then we're in here. So it's really similar to FTP. I think it's basically the same as FTP, but just Microsoft's version. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, while Brian is doing that, I'll try to fit in one more thing over here, MS SQL. So last Tuesday, we talked about MS SQL stuff. You can authenticate to this MS SQL server, but you can also run shell commands, which is kind of weird. And when you're like, something I was kind of confused when I was like interning as a red teamer was like people talking about SA and MS SQL, like what the heck does SA mean? SA means server admin, which is kind of like a term for MS SQL. I think it's like the root account of a SQL server. So when people talk about like SA, usually stands for server admin, and then you can run commands. And here's a tool, msql client.py, that you can use to run commands, to connect to the SQL server, and then try out, see if you are able to run commands with exec, whatever this is. Here's an example of that. Here I'm using msql.client to connect to one of these machines over here. And then in red right here is a command and a SQL command to execute a shell command, who am I? And then it actually returns something. So that's one way that you can also be able to run remote commands from a machine. All right, Brian, you want to give like reds out?
So you're gonna open it on your tab.
Sure.
So everyone's gonna have the same username and password. It's great, but you're gonna see like 30. Oh, I should probably talk to the microphone. Oh yeah. Oh. That's fine.
Now they're gonna see our stuff.
Oh, okay.
But they don't access, right?
No, they do.
Okay, just don't look at them.
Okay, so I put,
Don't do it.
okay, so yeah, so in chat, I put a link. It's a Google sheet. I doxed your Discord names, and then you have a number next to you, like 51 through 79. Don't use 79. I made a whoopsies there. Anyways, the number next to your Discord handle is the assigned pod environment that you're gonna use. So if your handles FYR fire, and then there's a number like 54 next to you, you're using pod number 54. It's also on the screen for, and I'll write the DAGD on the board for the people in person. And the username is bruh, password name is that, yes.
Jungle juicy.
We had exactly enough. No. I was talking about keyboard numbers.
Yeah, I'll add it to the link tree as well, maybe. Okay, it's on the link tree too.
Okay, I don't agree. I can't believe that wasn't big. Yeah. It's fine. They can see.
They can. No, they can't. No, wait. All I know is that this.
All right, is everyone able to log in?
If you did not do the interest form and your Discord handle is not there, message me on Discord. I'm Brian. This is Brian speaking, by the way. Message me on Zoom or on Discord. My Discord's Floppy Tortilla, and I'm also on the Swift Discord. Just message me that you don't have an account login, and I will gladly kick out any board member. Yay.
Yeah, and you didn't do the interest form, by the way, so your Discord handle like isn't on the thing. Let me know and I'll pick out keyboard record. Right there.
Hey, Brad, you can kick me out.
Alright.
If I, you can. I'm not sure.
Oh. You have the price on? Oh, can you put Elsa, can you put the Elsa link up there?
I will try.
Oh, yeah,
but
I'm the editor, my bad. I should be. Oh, wait, no, oh, wait, no.
No, just let me know when it's writable. Read, write, execute permissions on your Excel sheet.
I'll write it. Can you keep that?
Yeah. Prompt to you.
Yeah.
Font size.
Okay. What's your Discord handle?
Number 1233. Did I even sign up?
You're getting good at making friends. You're getting good at making friends. Okay, let's never mind, you're fine. What's your, I'm just putting logo. Your number 69. Oh, I wrote your middle, you're 7.
Oh, yeah, it's like.
MOKO?
Yeah. What mine? Well. Yeah, I've got a. Oh, nobody.
There, you still have access. It's not what we do.
I would really think down the way. Oh, yeah. That sounds very fun. And then, I can show you. Oh, yeah. So. We have another case. You can just go.
I'll take a minute.
Yo,
Why don't you remind us to use,
I have no idea.
I mean, you were looking from the Evan that they said.
He did?
Bro.
I don't remember.
Trolling. You literally said that like 6. When you were like.
When I was working on the stuff, right?
Yeah, every lawyer deals like this.
When I,
I put a photo, you gave me again.
I'm sorry. Wait, at 6, right? When 6:03, when the workshop started and I was here. Okay, I think that was like 5 minutes before I tried. I was just using like my I cloned with my terminal, like over here, like my terminal. It's not on the docs. Therefore, I can't be liable.
Trouble with installing PyTunnel or getting logged in? But yeah, logging on.
Yes. When you go depends on the release. Yeah. The actual.
What's that? Then you open it, you have the bit. No, not the bit. Oh, that's why I did, get that bit. I might not show up on you though. Oh, do that on the profile, make sure you unzip it before you import it.
I've seen it.
The OVP.
My first workshop.
And then the pin is 000. It's the 6 zeros. Yeah, first one.
I hope, yeah.
You want though, we just. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me unlock.
the credentials for the Kali machine, the username is root, the password is Kali. Let me do that.
Actually,
Yeah, can I have everyone's attention, please? So just super real quick, modified lab stuff. So now, like now that you have credentials for vSphere, and you could go with a lot of these attacks. There are a lot of other things that was not able to cover in the slides. So the slides are available in the link tree if you want to reference how to use Bloodhound or how to attack the last attack path for Active Directory. That was going to cover. But TLDR, there are ways to get local admin on Windows 10 and then domain admin for the entire domain. The attacks on the slides should be very identical to the ones in the lab. So if you have any questions, just refer to the slides. If you have any questions, just let one of us e-board members know. Yeah, that's all. Have fun.
What's the VPN pin?
Yeah, Zoom. It is now 8 o'clock.
The pin for the VPN is 6.
Anyways, the workshop is finished. I'm going to post the Zoom now. So if you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Discord or any of the. Thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your night.